Welcome back to RSAC Conference 2025. We're still here. We're still recording live from Cyber Risk TV studio in Broadcast Alley at Moscone West. I'm Doug White, and this is a good one, okay? I'm gonna tell you right now. So I read this bio, and I got all nervous, and I had to go have a couple of drinks. But this interview is with Amit Sinha, the CEO at DigiCert, and welcome, Amit.
Doug, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
I was like, wow. I was reading this bio, and I was like, and it started with like chapter 1. No, I'm giving Amit a hard time, but you were at Zscaler, you were at MIT, you've been all over the place. You're in the Bay Area now at DigiCert.
I am.
So that's really cool. I mean, I like that a lot. One of the things I know that we wanted to talk about was crypto agility.
Okay.
And firstly, I wanted you to give me like your sort of, what is that exactly? I mean, I know what I think, but I like to hear it from you. So give me a little rundown on that.
Yeah, thanks, Doug. So crypto agility, it's a hot topic these days, and I mean, we all know about human identities, right? Mm-hmm. When you authenticate through Okta or Azure and then access applications, we understand that. But what's hidden behind is the machine identity problem, right? Mm-hmm. For every human, there are 50x more machines.
Right.
So if you talk to any big organization, it's very common for them to have millions of these machine identities.
Absolutely.
Now what's happening is 3-4 huge changes are happening in the industry. One, these identities are getting shorter and shorter lived. So think about like your passport. Your passport has a validity period, right. And if your passport started expiring every day, and you had 1 million passports to manage, right. It's a huge problem, right?
Yes.
So you need to be agile then, right? You can't have manual processes, right? So you need a system that can automate the life cycle, the identity life cycle management of all of these machines. And we haven't even started talking about AI agents and software and content. So all of this, the technical term is PKI, the public key infrastructure. There's public and private infrastructure, but think about crypto agility as how do I automate the management of millions of these machine identities and workloads that are just expanding and proliferating in an organization.
Yeah, I mean, I've been calling this the ephemeral problem.
Yes.
Because we've moved from, like you said, static world to this world of, I'm going to pop up a bot.
Yeah.
It's going to solve a problem. It may last for seconds, milliseconds. It 100%. May last for a day. It may not last very long at all. And now so you and I were talking just a minute ago. I'm going to bring this up because you knew I was.
Okay.
We were talking about the lawyer bot.
Yeah, the lawyer bot.
and so on the surface, you say, I trust lawyer bot. But lawyer bot's an ephemeral machine that springs into being to answer a legal question. How do I know, how do I trust that? So I mean, that's the essence of the crypto agility problem, right?
In a way, right? Like now, AI agents are kind of the extension of the machine identity problem, right?
Yes.
Agent is what? Like a smart software, maybe a machine, maybe it's ephemeral. I mean, what do I want from a machine like this? First, like maybe I'll have 6 AI bots working for me, one being a Zoom avatar, one approving expense reports, maybe a lawyer chatbot negotiating contracts, right?
Yep.
What do I need for it? First, if they are operating on my behalf, they have to have strong identity.
Yes.
That they're.
You hope so.
Yeah. But more importantly, I also need a kill switch, right? Like,
that's what we were talking about.
I want, back to your ephemeral question. I don't want that agent to have perpetual identity and start acting on my behalf without even my permission and go rogue down the road, right? So maybe I say, hey, you're approved for a week, right? And after that, your identity expires and there's nothing you can do. What else do I need? I need them to, use encrypted communication, securely store information, right? So there's encryption, there's identity, there's authentication, authorization. What else do I need? Well, I need a log, right, of what actions have you taken,
right?
Kind of like almost like a forensic log. I mean, these are all kind of back to the basics of PKI patterns of, authentication, authorization, encryption, applied to a new paradigm. And so, I think it's a fascinating world that we live in.
No, it is. I mean, it's sort of a repeat of the past world of like, okay, I'm going to go give you some money, like long time ago, and I just have to hope that you aren't just going to steal it or it's going to get lost or whatever. And so we put all these laws around banks and controls and things. and now we're back to this. I'm still sort of hung on the lawyer bot because that scares me worse than anything.
Right.
If it's acting on my behalf, that's very useful.
Yeah.
But so how do I do that? I mean, how do I get that machine identity so that I trust you and you trust me and we're all ephemeral and we're going to be gone really shortly?
I mean, look, it starts with, I say PKI and DNS, Doug, are like electricity and water, right?
Yep.
You need to have your foundations strong, right? So start with basics first. Do you have an inventory of all places that need machine identities, right? Number two, can I automate those identities? Can I have governance around that? Can I revoke when I need to, right? So all of this is back to what DigiCert does in a way with DigiCert One. What is DigiCert One? It is a PKI identity management platform, right? And we do this at scale for the biggest hyperscalers, the big businesses. What are we doing today? We are managing machine identities on the public side, on the private side, but ephemeral identities would be, and here's my Kubernetes workload that's spun up in the cloud. It needs an 8-hour certificate on it, right? So it's approved and authorized to run for 8 hours, right? You'll see similar patterns extend to AI agents. But for that to happen in a more holistic way, Doug, we need some more standards. People talk about MCP, the Model Context Protocol.
Right.
I mean, these are beginning to shape up, but things like identity, authentication, authorization haven't quite been thought through in a holistic way. So the industry does need a few standards in this area, but I think the patterns are very similar to the machine identity problem that we've solved.
Let's cache all this in the context of saying I need and hate, because it's always been there, DNS.
Yeah.
And we all need DNS.
100%.
It's one of the foundation building blocks of just about everything. There's almost no service now that's not querying it. So if I'm using DNS, how does that evolve in these models? Because right now DNS is just this ancient, untrusted thing, and it's an oracle. You whisper a question into a hole in the wall, and an answer comes back, and you have no idea who's on, who's in that.
See, that's also a little bit of a misnomer. Like people, as I said, electricity and water, right? PKI, DNS. The issue is people think it just works till it doesn't. You have a flooding in the basement, or there's no electricity. Now, DNS is not just a name to IP map. DNS is like foundational to how traffic gets steered in a modern organization. Which CDN am I going to use? What's my resilience, right? How do I fail over? It's so foundational that when it's off, like for example, I think recently there was a Zoom outage that was attributed to DNS, records being...
been a few.
And there's been many such examples, right? So DNS resilience is very key. Do you have DDoS protection? Back to kind of basics of, is your foundational DNS service important? But how does DNS and PKI come together, right?
Right.
The industry now is moving towards 47-day digital certificates from 398 days.
Yes.
Now imagine if you, and by the way, tied to that is domain validation that will eventually get down to 10 days.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
So what's the problem? Like, let's say, Doug, you run a service, Doug.com.
Right.
First, you need to have a robust DNS, so it's always resolving. But then now you need a certificate on that domain, but before I give you one, I need to validate that you own Doug.com through DNS. If I have to do this for 1 million DNS records, with shortening certificate lifetimes and validation periods, that automation better be bulletproof, right?
Like, because everything comes crashing down.
Everything comes crashing down. You don't want a case where, for automation, I have to open up all my DNS just to do this PKI cert automation. So that's a security hole. But at the same time, you don't want brittle integration where, I tried, and the DNS team is a separate team, separate system, didn't update the record, I didn't get it. Right. If you had to do it 1 million times in an organization, it is a problem, right? And we haven't even started talking about quantum and what that does to all of this.
Yeah, I want to talk about that in a minute. How ephemeral do you see DNS and those certificates getting? I mean, to me, it's like the shorter lived they are, the better.
100%. Why is the industry going to shorter duration digital certificates? Because it's well understood that keys and secrets, the shorter they are, the less exposure it is. You don't have to manage big revocation lists and this and that, right? So it's good security practice, but it's also forcing automation. I think the 47-day ballot that got passed a few weeks ago is sort of a huge catalyst, a wake-up call for the industry to say you need rock-solid automation to make all of this work. Now, how short? Well, I used to work at Zscaler, right? At Zscaler, in some cases we were down to per session certs, right?
Well, it really should be
here's
that.
an 8-hour cert on a Frankfurt node where you can,
Yep.
where the privilege access can happen only for that 8 hours on a particular type of node. So it's back to that ephemeral question
and
that you were
that's
talking
actually
about.
getting into very specialized certificates, for,
Yeah, it's like this authorization and this identity expires in 8 hours, or
right,
something
and
like
it's
that.
only for this service at this time.
At this service, this type, finite duration.
So how do you? I mean, obviously the question is about one.
Right.
How does that kind of work for, say, domain management? Because there's a lot of layers there.
Yeah.
So there's, like you said, there's not just, is this domain securityweekly.com valid, but are the underpinnings of that domain valid? Are the owners of that domain valid? So it ultimately becomes an identity trust issue.
100%.
So how do you manage all that? I mean,
look, DigiCert One brings PKI and DNS into a very tight, single platform. DigiCert today serves 1/3 of the authoritative DNS queries in the world, right? So we know how to do this at scale for some of the largest hyperscalers. But back to your, the granular permission problem. You don't do automation like some of the vendors might say. Oh, here's my DNS. Here's an API. Your Acme cert bot that does this PKI automation has this key, and now it can do whatever it wants on the DNS. So I can do automation. That's not good. You've suddenly opened up your core DNS to some bot automation that's inserting records just so it can do its automation. You want very specific granular controls to say, here's the PKI team, here are the things that I want to automate, and here's my DNS, and they are all working in a tight, single pane of glass system, not siloed, cloud first, built for ephemeral identity and authorization infrastructure.
I think that means we're probably entering a period of Wild Westness where you're going to have people that have adopted things like this that are very single pane of glass controlled, and other people that are just going to be Wild Wested all over the place.
I think the PKI industry is going through a renaissance, right? In the next 3 to 4 years, you're going to see probably a once in a 20, 30 year modernization cycle, right?
Yeah.
And some of that is also spurred by quantum, right? People, what quantum does, for example, is all the algorithms that go into the current trust fabric are broken immediately, right? So RSA is broken, Diffie-Hellman is broken, all the asymmetric algorithms get broken. So what's happening, Doug, is that NIST has passed these quantum-safe cryptographic algorithms, and they're available as standards. We run it on DigiCert One today, but that requires, again, a crypto agility, a modernization cycle.
Yeah.
And the paths to the 47-day certs and shorter duration certs, even on the current cryptography, is the same path you take for post-quantum cryptography. You need a modern system that can give you an inventory of all your crypto assets. It can provide governance and policies, and more importantly, fail-safe automation, right, to swap this. So today you're swapping 47-day certs. Tomorrow you'll be swapping pre-quantum algorithms with post-quantum algorithms, and it's that crypto agility that prepares you, and that's the modernization cycle we're going through.
One of the things I did want to ask you about post-quantum, especially in regards to this, because like you said, and I've said, we count on things like DNS like we count on electricity.
Yeah.
We just assume it will be there, but those are changing things with PQC evolution. So basically, as those algorithms get broken, what should, say, me as a CISO, especially as a CISO, say a middle level company, I mean, the big guys are all, they're playing, but there's a lot of companies out there that don't have the infrastructure to just immediately dive into this. To become more crypto agile, to get off the couch, what should they be doing right now in this almost PQC world, it's maybe not even pre anymore.
Yeah, I mean, there's just a here and now problem, Doug. That's a great question. I like this middle layer. Like the big companies have thought about that, and
They
they've
tend
done
to resolve, yeah.
They've done some homegrown things
And
and,
they
other
have
things,
they have
and
resources.
they have resources. A lot of the 47-day cert, right, is a wake-up call for the CISO of the middle-tier industry, right? They don't have a crypto specialist team. They don't have so. I mean, that's where I think leveraging a partner like DigiCert. We have a platform. It's cloud first. It's multi-tenant. You don't need to manage HSMs. You don't need to do a custom automation. So what do I advise CISOs? Okay. Let's go through pain point 1, 2, 3. You're an organization. You have 10,000 employees. You have a small IT team, right? Let's start with your users. You have 10,000 users. Each user has a machine. There's probably 5 or 6 crypto things on it. We'll automate that. Step 1. Step 2. Let's do an inventory scan. Discover all your crypto, and all of that is just like plug and play, right? So we'll discover and say, hey, you have X number of identities in the clouds, some on your data centers. Now you have an inventory. Once you have an inventory, let's go with policies. You assign owners. Right? Kind of the back to basics, right? And you don't have to build stuff, right? You don't have to, and you can do more with less because the platform is doing it for you.
I mean, we really are going to need that at home. I mean, literally. I will say, I was at a presentation recently, not here, but I was with a client, and the pitch started with, now you'll want your SOC to implement, on the SOC team, and the response to the guy was like,
Where's my SOC team? I'm the SOC team.
I'm the team. I'm the everything. And so I think that if you are in that situation, and a lot of people are, you definitely need to be looking at solutions now, because you're not going to want to be in that Wild West, left out of the game mode.
And I think, look, organizations are being asked to do more with less, right? And so there's an operational cost to it. Many of the customers in the middle tier that we talk to suffer from outages. Those outages are on their critical systems because certs have expired. That's a cost. So how do I do more with less, with a smaller team, but a system that gives me fail-safe automation? That's what we are driving towards with DigiCert.
That sounds great. Well, for you to find out more about DigiCert, please visit www.digicert.com, or you can go to our landing page at securityweekly.com/DigiCert Thank you, Dr. Sinha. That was amazing.
Thank you, Doug.
I'm really pleased that you could be here with us today. Thanks all of you for joining in. We will be back with the wrap up in a few minutes, and we'll be back tomorrow with more interviews just like this here at Cyber Risk Alliance TV. Thanks all of you. We'll see you in a little bit.
Thanks, Doug.